Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between the Chaos Dwarves and Grand Cathay here on the Gates of Ekron. So it is going to be Draz making a rare appearance, and he's quite a bit of fun. He is going to be on foot. I think that the Sorcerer Prophet is better on the Bale Taurus because he has healing abilities, whereas Draz doesn't. So he becomes a bit of a liability when he's on a big target. But that means you can bring him on foot, and he's a pretty good anti-infantry character, and he can also spam some cheap fun spells. So we do have the Burning Wrath, I believe it's called, so using this magic missile and like bunched up, let's say Iron Hail Gunners or Jade Warriors, even artillery pieces can do some good work. Now, for the rest of the build here, it is going to be a front line of laborers, and we do have some orcs and goblin laborers backed up by Chaos Dwarf Warrior great weapons. Cathay has a very dwarf-like front line, right? And against dwarves, you typically want to bring great weapons. It does make them slightly more vulnerable against shooting. There is an argument to be made for shields, but I figured we'll use the laborers on the front to eat the bullets and then send the Chowie in afterwards. On top of that, we do have one Chaos Dwarf Blunderbuss here in the back, and I have that to defend the DREADQUAKE Mortar. So somebody told me on stream that the DREADQUAKE Mortar automatically shooting thing, even when you tell it not to, has been fixed. So I was like, let's give it a try. Let's see how it does. I personally am a huge fan of magma cannons. They're probably my favorite anti-infantry artillery the Chowie have. Deathshrieker is also not terrible in this matchup, but it's time to go big, baby, and we got the DREADQUAKE Mortar. Aside from that, on the other side, it's going to be some Chowie Warriors and Cutthroats, and up here on the point, we have some Hobgoblin Wolf Riders, and I sometimes do that just to like throw my opponent off. I'll like pretend to unsummon a unit on mistake. Yeah, it's just a funny little gag, but we do have two of the Hobgoblin Spear Rider or Wolf Rider bows here. Very good skirmish units, honestly. They can kite the Peasant Horsemen pretty effectively, give you pressure on the points early. They do a lot. Now, for my opponent's build, Nerexa here, aka Serkia, is going to be using the Dragon-Blooded Lord of Yin, and there's definitely some cool strategies here. You use the Yin Lord to not only summon Ancestral Warriors, let's say on top of a gun piece or on top of an artillery crew, but you also do have this nice slowing ability, the Storm of Shadows, so it slows the target by 58%. So you can really slow down my cavalry and chase me down, so I think that's a cool combo there. Aside from that, the rest of the army is going to be pretty dynamic. Crane Gunners with Jade Warriors, Iron Hail Gunners just to blast my Chowie in the face. Two Alchemists who are going to be hiding in the bushes with the Master of the Elemental Winds, so this is going to be giving intensity to the magic for a very cheap price point. And that is pretty much it. So on the other side, out of the gates, we do see the Foul Magic of Yin being used here. Storm of Shadows activated on the Hobgoblin Wolf Riders, and they're going to be fleeing the scene. We'll be taking a little bit of a charge from Peasants, but honestly, the Peasants barely do any damage at all, so it ain't no big deal. Hobgoblin Wolf Riders with these spears, I would say trade pretty well into the Peasants. They do have a little bit of a better charge bonus, and they also have Cowardly Despoilers, so when they get the rear charge on them, it can actually do some considerable damage. We're trying to catch them. We're about the same speed, give or take. Cutthroats on the way up and Hobgoblins, but I know what you guys are here. You're here for the DREADQUAKE Mortar. So the DREADQUAKE's going to rip its first shot here. Unfortunately, I do get in line of sight here, so that felt pretty bad, and my DREADQUAKE gets pounded really hard by those cannons immediately, and I was like, oh man, that sucks. So I'm going to take one shot, basically, and then I'll be fleeing behind the tree line. Thankfully, on this map, I can use the trees a little bit to hide, but the DREADQUAKEs are super inaccurate. But if they hit, they do work. So here we have a little bit of a combo. We try and use Draz Burning Wrath to snipe the enemy cannon with the DREADQUAKE, but unfortunately, the DREADQUAKE's accuracy, not great. It looks super cool and makes one of the most awesome sound effects you could imagine, but it doesn't do much. I was hoping that the DREADQUAKE would hit, and you can see Burning Wrath does some okay damage too, with very, very long range. But it didn't work out like that. Crane Gunner's going to be shooting at Draz. He's on the ground here getting pounded pretty good. Now the Chowie Warrior's going to be moving up. And on this side, we do have a bit of a decisive victory. So we rout off the Peasant Horsemen pretty effectively. We got our two Wolf Rider bows chasing them down. And there is going to be a flank of some Cutthroats. So I'm hoping I will be able to push the tempo here and have some success. We'll do our best to also keep our eyes on the DREADQUAKE Mortar. It is relocating, so I did move it, and now it's going to start shooting again. But man, Draz getting pounded by those Iron Hail Gunners. Brutal damage. So we do try this tech of using the Burning Wrath up here to shut the cannon down, and it does also tickle through some of these Peasant Spears. And you can see the damage isn't bad, like as a progressive piece to wear them down, and boom, DREADQUAKE Mortar. It's very Chaos Dwarf lore friendly, right? To nuke the laborers. Literally just misses the enemy and nukes their own laborers. It's very classic stuff. It's almost like a Scooby-Doo villain or something, or you know, some 90s cartoon villain who's always foiling themselves. Nonetheless, we get a good flank here. In the woods, some of the Hobgoblin Wolf Raider bows do jump on top of the Iron Hail Gunners, and we are going to get some laborers on top of them as well. Storm of Shadows used, and the Crane Gunners still getting some nice supporting fire, so I haven't been able to shut those down yet. My opponent doing a pretty good job defending with some Jade Lancers, and another shot from the mortar. It just misses. It was like right in front of the cannon. So I was like, okay, I guess I should just give up on my dream of the cannon. So we will be switching targets here soon-ish. Now there's going to be a summon for my opponent here. It is going to be the Jade Warrior Halberd, so here they come. Wisely, my opponent doesn't go back after my DREADQUAKE Mortar because I was camping it with some heavy shooting. And there you can see the Burning Wrath. Pretty cool little spell. It's dirt cheap too, and gives me some nice utility in terms of damage. And Draz Hoeth is a very tanky foot character, so he can take it like a champ. Another mortar shot. I don't even know what that one was shooting at. It was like just randomly in the open here. I have no idea. But a lot of the shooting of Cathay has been shut down. Granted, they are pretty well ahead in value, but here comes the Wolf Riders. Gotta be knocking some of these over. I think I was like trying to sneak around and get on the cannons or something, or maybe retreat. I can't remember quite what we were up to there. Oh, I was running from the Jade Lancers, that's what it was. Because the Jade Lancers were coming to hunt me down. But Draz Hoeth and company hanging in there. Oh, mortar shot. Did we miss it? Okay. Looks like it was a swing and a miss. I think it literally just hit like a random spot in the open field again. Now, aside from that, in the tree line, we do have some ambushes forming. So Chaos Dwarves with great weapons are on their way across, and some Hobgoblin Spear Riders. The Crowmen of Grand Cathay have been called out, most likely going to be doing their bombardment. These are the Empress's Crowmen. They're just very good, and they will dominate a lot of my skirmishers. Looks like maybe he's going to be going for a play on the Dreadquake mortar, but I think my opponent even knows that the Dreadquake is such a haggard meme that it can't really do a whole lot. Now, I was feeling extra crazy today, so I decided to call in an Iron Demon against Cathay, which is extremely risky with all their shooting, but I was like, let's go balls to the wall and see if we can get in and cause some havoc. But I immediately regret that decision because my opponent had Storm of Shadows. So that feels really bad. I probably should have came to the woods with it, but yeah, it's going to get the business right now. Very, very nice firepower from my opponent. Draz Hoeth going to be scooting over after the Iron Hail Gunners, and the Iron Demon does at least get a little bit of damage into the Iron Hail, and it's trying to get in there, man. It's doing it. I'm just got one of these in tabletop. Really, really cool model. But here comes the Iron Demon, baby. Rolling up the hill. It's going to get there. It didn't hear no bell, so it rolls through those. Might be able to get a break here. They're shaken, but holding on at 8 leadership. Iron Demon, thankfully, is unbreakable, so I don't need to worry about it routing. But you can see I'm pretty massively behind on value, and things are getting a little bit dodgy now. The one thing I have going for me is the fact that Grand Cathay is really bad at pushing objectives, and finally we get a direct hit. Yeah, baby, let's go. The Jade Warriors here get pounded super hard, and they're at -14. So that was the power fantasy that we've all been dreaming of the entire game, was getting that direct shot. But on the back objective, I start to reinforce it with Chaos Dwarf Warriors. I do also have some Bull Centaur Renders back here, and I use the shielded variant often against Cathay. Because, you know, it helps against Iron Hail Gunners, and honestly, the anti-large against Cathay, sometimes they'll bring in Dragon, so I'll bring one of each. I'll bring one standard one, and there's another Dreadquake, so hey, when the Dreadquake, when we needed it most, it comes in, although arguably we wouldn't have been punished so hard over here if it actually hit a little bit, but it didn't. Chaos Dwarf Warriors, though, are up on the point, and I'm just preparing for Helm's Deep, basically. My poor train is trying to get away, but Dragon-Blooded Lords of Grand Cathay are actually respectable little fighters, and the Iron Demon is going to be sent to the Shadow Realm. Meanwhile, we still have some good fighting tools over here, though. Hobgoblin Cutthroats will, of course, lose to Jade Warrior Halberds, but the Chaos Dwarf Warriors do uptrade into most of the Cathay units. They do very well, and another random mortar shot. Just, you know, can't explain it. There's no science to it. They just randomly go. The great weapons jumping on the Jade Warriors here, being rear charged by the Empress's Crowmen, which are obviously going to be dominating these Hobgoblins. But here comes the Bull Centaurs, which will be giving +8 leadership to the Hobgoblins. It didn't quite save them, but even still, we have a pretty good defensive posture back here. The Dreadquake Mortar is about to use all of its ammo, so right now I'm trying to finish off those Halberds, and it misses, unfortunately. So once again, the Jade Warrior Halberds escaping, but it's sending a message of intimidation. You know, even though it's looking a little bit rough for us Chowie in this game, you know, my opponent sees the Chad Dreadquake Mortar, and I'm sure is shaking in their boots. Now, on the backside, gets a little bit sneaky. Serkia here going to be going for a Ninja Cap, so 2 Peasant Horsemen going to be trying to get that objective right here. Meanwhile, the Hobgoblin Sneaky Gits and some Wolf Riders should be able to easily dispatch them. So the Cowardly Despoilers going to be cowardly advancing from the tree line here to try and rout them off, and they should be able to get it done. Meanwhile, on Objective 1, we're hanging in there. I do have my Blunderbusses trying to snipe the Lord, but once again, my opponent using really, really good slow play with the Storm of Shadows. Chowie Warriors, though, holding very well. Draz Hoeth the Ashen with his anti-infantry, not doing badly. He only costs 1,100 gold with the kit, and he's just about paid for himself, and honestly has been a pretty useful asset, just providing these little like fire missiles every now and then. And the Dreadquake Mortar, it does slow these units down. Just like in Tabletop, the Dreadquake Mortar actually takes away movement from your opponents and makes it so they can't use like super speed rules called Swift Stride, which ain't bad. So a couple more shots on that, and here on the far side, we are going to be routing these units off. So the Peasant Horsemen do get chased by the Hobgoblin Sneaky Gits, and the value, we are down by about 2,000, and neither of us really have healing, so it's a very, very true measure of the value in the game, more or less. Granted, value that is accrued against single entities doesn't always reflect in like the overall state of the game because they're still functional until they're taken down, but we do get a big Dreadquake shot right there. Man, big hit. Finally, baby, we're cooking with that thing. Those Iron Hill gunners do get busted up, -27, and they're going to be running for the hills. You can see Cathay's in a bit of an issue, right? Because I have a very stalwart Dowie defense back here, including Bull Centaur Renders, Iron Hill Gunners, not Iron Hill Gunners, but Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses. We got some sneaky gets coming up and some warriors still holding on the fronts. Cannon shot doing nice work, though. I wasn't able to shut that thing down. Very, very annoying. Trying to get some of my Chaos Warriors to go get that. We'll see if they can. But overall, Cathay is kind of, having to waddle forward in a very precarious manner. And Dwarves, even though we're not as tanky as, our noble dwarf cousins, the Chaos Dwarves are still very stalwart. They have high armor and pretty good leadership on a lot of their units. So they're a tough faction to get off objectives here. So Sneaky gets throwing Ninja Stars into the Alchemists, which are trying to provide some capture weight. And the Bull Centaur Renders are just being absolute beasts. So they're just tearing through pretty much everything here. You can see routing through these units. A little bit of blunderbuss fire up on the high ground, going to be mowing down some of these Cathay troopers. And Cathay is having problems trying to kill Draz Hoth, which isn't a bad idea. He's very low, surrounded by infantry, and the Dragon-Blooded Lord does, like I said, pack a good punch at 55 melee attack and 440. Should be able to finish off Draz Hoth. Meanwhile, Objective 3 is firmly in our control, so I was very happy to win that because it's rapidly approaching a situation where it's going to be a Helm's Deep triple cap. So if I can have one of these two objectives to fall back on and send all my units to, it's going to be very tough. Cathay, one of their weaknesses is their inability to really aggressively have forward killing power. They're very good on the defense and very good at holding objectives, kind of like Dwarves, but when it comes to moving up, their infantry have really limp killing power. Like Jade Warriors in general, they just do not kill things effectively. So it's tricky. Like you saw when I was charging into the Iron Hills, it's like a different story, but now that they're on the offensive, it's a little bit wild here. So Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses getting attacked, unfortunately, and we do get the Bull Centaur Renders moving back to the objective. Looking a little bit scary for me, though. He does start to get the capture weight on the point, so I was sweating bullets here, I have to say. And here we get a couple Hobgoblin Wolf Riders who are going to be intercepted by the Peasant Horsemen, but should be a kill for us. And rapidly approaching triple cap. I'm pretty sure we're right around triple cap territory right now. But the Blunderbusses are basically Dwarf Warriors, still 28, 32, and 34 for combat stats, so they're able to fight off Jade Lancers with Bull Centaur support, and also the Jade Halberds are going to get mashed by these big armor-piercing Centaurs. And the cap weight is starting to flip for Cathay, though. If I lose this, I could be in a really, really dodgy situation, and Cathay on the other side is going to be going for it. So they're coming in hard, and my brave Hobgoblin Sneaky Git's going to be rushing forward to try and mitigate the capture for as long as they possibly can, but the dreaded 26 leadership, yes. Very good indeed, and not going to be holding up as they do get run down by all of these Peasant Horsemen, and their leadership's going to be really bad with Draz Hoth being gone. Already at 3 with the Crowmen coming in, but hey, they bought me a second, and now we are officially in triple cap territory here, so I just need to hold this objective here. We do get our Wolf Riders to intercept some of the reinforcements, so that felt pretty good to finally get those Iron Hills offline with the Hobgoblin Wolf Raider. Sergio is a very, very high-level player who's excellent at defending their guns, as you saw earlier on, but we finally get that cookie jar, and now the Hobgoblin's going to be moving towards the Grand Cannon. And the Chowie are hanging in there, baby. We got the Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses shooting into the side, and I do see some sweet bread up in the sky. So the Dragon-Blooded Shugengen Lord, definitely an opportunity to blunderbuss him out of the sky if he comes a little bit closer. He's kind of at maximum range here, which is tricky. Parking my Hobgoblin Wolf Riders on the back of the objective here, but talk about MVP. These guys have just been absolute beasts this game. 1,300 value, I don't think it accurately reflects how damn useful they've been. And we do get another Bull Centaur in there. Should be able to annihilate any Jade Lancers that try and move up on the objective. Chaos Dwarf Warriors with great weapons will dunk on Jade Warrior Halberds. And now it's blunderbussin' time, baby. Here it comes. They're going to start ripping big shots, and that Cathay Lord gets melted by the blunderbusses. They're such a fun unit. When they work, it's just like, it's so fun. So that Lord gets pounded, and there's not too many chances for Grand Cathay to get this game now. I pulled the value back a little bit, but I really pounded the Cathay units. The Lord is getting dunked on, and his reinforcements are too slow. I'm probably going to steal this home objective, so my opponent does tap out, and that is GG, well played. It was a good scrap, and the Dreadquake Mortar was pretty terrible, honestly. If I had just switched that into either a Magma Cannon, would not have worked because I needed indirect shooting. Because I had to hide behind the trees from his cannons. But if I had gone with maybe a Deathstreak rocket launcher, which costs 700 less or 600 less or something like that, and then augmented my army a little bit, I still think Draz Hoth did okay. Arguably, Astro Chad might be better. He's got Flamestorm, which you can use, although, I don't know, I kind of like Draz Hoth on foot. Probably you go with the Sorcerer Prophet, though, because he gets the healing when my opponent casts spells. Sadly, Draz Hoth is just kind of that healing ability the Prophet has just makes him so much better. Blunderbusses carried the endgame there. They're really nice. Dreadquake, unfortunately, it didn't pay for itself. It only got 1,200. Yeah, Bull Centaurs are great. I mean, I made a ton of mistakes that game. The Iron Demon was rough, and some of the initial advance was very rough, too. But, the Chaos Dwarves, they're a stalwart, folks. Still dwarves. They still got those short dwarven legs, and they pump them hard. But, it is what it is. Yeah, cool build. Using the intensity and to get the power slow on the character, and then also having the summons is nice. Cannon did good, 1500. Iron Hills also pounded a little bit here. Crowmen always strong, and for the most part, the Cathay Troopers did struggle, though. So that's it, guys. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you around, and adios.